Grand Slam Track Miami is in the books, and now after having attended both of the slams in Kingston and now Miami, I consistently start to warm up more and more to the idea of what this actually can become. Now, we know that there has been various different conversations as it relates to the long-term sustainability of Grand Slam Track, about how they're going to be able to maintain paying the athletes this much, the structure of Grand Slam Track. But again, the experience that I'm having on the ground does seem to point towards a very, very successful product that is hopefully going to be, maintained if managed well, and something that the athletes, the fans, the coaches, the agents, that everybody is going to be able to get on board with and consistently put their all into as the years go on. Now, again, there is a larger conversation as it relates to, can this actually sustain itself, and will this be able to kind of shift the landscape of track and field as, fans and athletes do see it to potentially do. But I really do think that there's a positive trajectory that Grand Slam Track is on. But let me talk about some of the different results that I did want to highlight from the weekend that really stood out, of course, on the sprint and the hurdle side, as these athletes are really putting their all. Very specifically, the fact that it's still quote unquote early season, where the World Championships are at the end of the year, but athletes in Grand Slam Track are consistently getting better and better and throwing down some of the fastest performances that we've seen at this time of year. Now, I want to specifically talk about Kenny Bednarek. I'm going to do a larger video about Kenny Bednarek and his kind of progression over the past couple years, but very specifically, he got the slam win again in the 100, 200, running a windy 9.79 in the 100 meters and then 19.84 in the 200, which again, just that 200 specifically kind of was a display of dominance in the event. And once he got that 100-meter win, it was going to be very hard for any athlete to really take Kenny down. Of course, I was completely wrong about Oblique Seville. He's another one I'm going to have a quick kind of video coming about, but I was completely wrong. I kind of underestimated his consistency, his ability, even though we all know that Oblique Seville is insanely talented. There was a reason that last year, even if he hadn't competed as frequently, I picked him originally to get the bronze medal, to make it onto the podium, even if he didn't actually perform to that ability at the Olympic Games. But I thought that some of the other guys, of course, Fred Curley, who didn't compete here, Kenny B, who of course did get the win here, Akeem Blake, who had run, I thought that they would surpass Oblique, but Oblique once again proved why he is not to be, forgotten, especially when it comes to a lot of these races, throughout the regular season on the circuit. Even if he is quiet in the middle of the year, if he's not running as frequently compared to some other guys, Oblique Seville is not to be forgotten. So he really showed up running a windy 9.84 and also a personal best of 20.13 seconds in the 200. This is specifically what I'm going to talk about in a separate video, where Oblique kind of revealed that he's been dealing with a toe issue. This might have been kind of lingering information over the past couple years, but he said he's had a toe issue since high school that has really prevented him from being the 200-meter athlete that he would love to be. So shout out to Oblique Seville. Again, I'm going to do a little deep dive on that end as well. Zarnell Hughes, also for me, in terms of my picks, he did prove me wrong as well. He got third place overall, 20.13, and he kind of spoke in his post-race interview that he was feeling very, very confident about where he's at relative to the entire season, especially coming off Kingston and coming off Miami here as well. So Zarnell Hughes, he's going to be a strong threat as we kind of continue through 2025. And shout out to Brandon Hicklin. Brandon Hicklin was called as a last-minute replacement for Fred Curley once things kind of transpired on Thursday, and he came here and got overall fourth place in the short sprints, fifth in the 100 and 200. And the 200, he is barely even a 200 runner. Brandon Hicklin is coming from the long jump, right? He used to be a jumper, dove into the sprints. He was able to run sub 10 a couple times, and he said he got a call last minute while he said he was on a flight to China for the World Relays. Like, huge props to Brandon Hicklin. So shout out to this entire short sprints group. Again, Kenny B is just showing dominance and consistency that's going to be hard for anyone to actually match. Going forward, I think that Kenny B still does have a decent amount of competition in the 100, though the gap seems to be growing a little bit, but someone like Oblique Seville is going to be able to get progressively better. So towards Philly, he might be in some good shape to potentially take down Kenny B. But the 200 is just, it's such a gap between Kenny B and the rest of the field. And especially if Kenny B is coming off a very strong 100 meters, there's not going to be anyone to be able to stop him in this short sprints group in the 200 meters. So it's going to be interesting to see how he kind of does progress. I've seen people talking about Kenny B, wanting to see him in the long sprints, but I think as the season progresses, it's not going to make sense for Kenny to dive into the 400 and 200 in that group. Yes, even though he could be really strong against those guys, specifically in the 200, I mean, he would he would take down all those guys. But in the 400, it's a different ball game there. Personal best of 44.7 from all the way back in 2019, I think. So Kenny B is at a different place in his career at this point. Though he could be competitive, I don't think it's likely that he's going to dive into the long sprints group. But along with that, I do want to talk about the women's short sprints, as this was another group that really did highlight the competitiveness of the league, where you had someone like Gabby Thomas dropping down from the long sprints, and she was the Grand Slam champion in Kingston, and she was trying to do that here in the women's short sprints. I thought that she would get it based on my predictions on how things would play out, but it unfortunately did not play out like that, and Gabby Thomas was disappointed, which again kind of speaks to how these athletes are actually treating Grand Slam track, where Gabby, the fact that she was disappointed that she wasn't able to get the overall win really speaks to how important she finds this competition, these races, Grand Slam track, etc., etc. So, but Melissa Jefferson Wooden, she's been showing up and showing out in a way that's kind of given her a real breakthrough in the event over the past, of course, these 2 slams, but really a culmination of the past 2 years or so, with her making the Olympic team, getting a bronze medal, and now in Grand Slam track. She did win the 100, running 10.75, again, slightly windy, similar to Kenny B, but the 200, she got 3rd place, running a personal best of 20.15 seconds. Very, very strong personal best for Melissa Jefferson Wooden, and really showcasing her talent as a double threat. I personally, be completely honest, right? I didn't actually think she was going to be as far up, relative to some other athletes like a Favor Ophelia, Brittany Brown, right? I thought some of these other 200 meter women would be able to surpass Melissa Jefferson Wooden, but she displayed so much grit and focus and determination to try and get the overall win, which she eventually did. And she kind of started to break down at the end of the 200, but amazing performance for her. And Tamari Davis, of course, gladly, y'all told me, but I definitely I didn't recognize Tamari Davis for the talent that she had, and I placed her last down in the 100. She disproved that, running 10.79, again, slightly windy, but getting 2nd place in that 100. And then in the 200, she showed up and showed why she is one of the best in the United States, and definitely the world potentially as well. 22.05 seconds for personal best in the 200. Tamari Davis is one of the few athletes, again, coming directly out of high school and straight to the professional ranks, who is very much still in the conversation. She already made the World Championship team in 2023 in the 100, and now going forward, she is very much a double threat. Could make the team to the World Championships in Tokyo this year in both the 100 and the 200. It's not going to be easy, but I would say that she is one of the athletes who's definitely in that upper group to very much make the team. Gabby Thomas, like I said, she finished overall 2nd place in the short sprints, getting 4th place in the 100 and then winning the 200, 21.95 seconds. But she had some competition there. Again, Tamari Davis ran 22.05. So we're talking about a 1/10 of a second between Gabby and Tamari Davis. And Gabby was disappointed, but she's going to be going into Philly and Los Angeles and now alternate in the short sprints and the long sprints. She didn't say exactly what she plans to do, but that'll be pretty exciting. I would love to see her in Los Angeles in the long sprints, because then that would set up for a great competition between Paulino, Nasser, Cindy McLaughlin-Levrone, who said she'll run it there, and then also Gabby Thomas. That's something that we all want to see, but we'll see if it actually does come into fruition. Shout out to Favor Ophelia. I also got a chance to speak with her, and she was pretty elated. She was happy about her performance here at Grand Slam track and kind of the progression of her season, having run sub 11 seconds a little bit earlier this year already, having run a strong 200. Here, she managed to run 22.27 in the 200. So Favor Ophelia in some good form, and I think a positive indication on what's to come as we look forward to the rest of the year. Now, that was the women's short sprints, and I want to quickly talk about the long sprints, where I had spoken about Marlita Paulino as well as Sawi Nasser, both of them kind of really dueling it out in the women's 400. Paulino, of course, got the win, a little bit of kind of revenge in the sense of getting back from Nasser and Gabby, who took her down in Kingston. But Paulino, 400 meter win, 49.21, just ahead of Nasser's 49.33. But in the 200, this is where Paulino really did shine. Of course, Gabby Thomas wasn't here, so these women were kind of a little more evenly matched and a lot more competitive. We saw that Paulino, in my opinion, kind of dominated this race coming off the curve. And the way that she runs, it's not necessarily graceful, but it's aggressive, it's powerful, and it's very unique in a way that, I don't know, no other athlete. I'm trying to think of a comparison, through history, but Paulino, that arm swing, right? She is dominant down that track, and she got the win in the 200, 22.30 seconds to set a personal best, a national record for Dominican Republic, and proving why she's someone who does not like to lose. And I spoke to her afterwards as well, and she said she loves the competition. both her and Sawi Nasser and Gabby Thomas, all these 400-meter women, they're all, friendly and compatriots, off the track. But on the track, she is determined to get the win. She is focused on crossing that line first, and she's going to do anything possible to get there. So Paulino, another one who really has so much untapped potential, and proves that even if she's a little bit older than some of these athletes, she still is very much in great form. And she said that she wants to potentially break the 48-second barrier sooner than we think, maybe even the world record one day, but we'll see. I have a video coming up about that as well. But shout out to Paulino, Nasser, Isabella Whitaker, 22.76 in the 200, getting third place, and then 50.38 in the 400, getting fourth place. Of course, I didn't think that she would finish that high. Again, some of my predictions were wrong, some of them were right. But what I love about Isabella Whitaker is that her range across the board is immaculate, right? You're talking about 202 in the 800, 49.2 indoors in the 400, and now 22.7 in the 200. There's few athletes in history who have that kind of range. I mean, I don't know. I'm off the top of my head, maybe like Gerald Mills Clark in the 1990s, but I'm not even sure if she was that strong in the 200. So I don't know, but this was amazing from Isabella Whitaker to get overall third place. Again, she's still unsponsored, just coming off the NCAA. So we'll see how she does kind of progress through the year. And, some of these other women, they're starting to, I feel like, warm up a little bit through the year, right? Alexis Holmes, she got a personal best in the 200. Nikisha Price, right? She ran really strong in the 200 and decently in the 400 as well, getting fifth place overall. So, some progression. I know some people, like I said, when I make my picks and my predictions, it's not easy. Some people were saying I was crazy for picking Alexis Holmes ahead of someone like Stacey Ann Williams because Stacey had just run a strong 200-meter best. But, not saying I exactly knew, but it's hard to predict, right? And just going based on average. Many people had Amber Anning finishing significantly higher in both the 400 and the 200, but she finished down the pack here, 6th in the 200, 7th in the 400. So that's why I say making predictions is not easy. But at the other end of it, who knows what's going to actually come into fruition. So shout out to the women's long sprints here and the men's long sprints as well. Dream Richards, he showed out, got the overall win in, commanding fashion, of course, in that 200, 19.86, which is the fastest time he's run since 2023. But then he also ran 44.32 seconds in the 400, getting second place behind Ja'Cory Patterson, who we'll talk about in a second. But that is one of his fastest times at this point in the season. Again, all these athletes are really taking it seriously, but there's also the acknowledgement that we have a long way to go before the World Championships, which is still one of the more important meets on the calendar. But that doesn't take away from what someone like Dream Richards is doing here. Shout out to Dream Richards. He has a lot. I don't know, man. He has a couple choices he can make. He can dip it to the 200. It's very competitive, but you can also still focus on the 400, when we're talking about the rest of the year. So shout out to Dream Richards. Always a pleasure to speak to. But Ja'Cory Patterson, of course, this was the story of the weekend as it comes to an athlete really showing up, really kind of taking advantage of the opportunity that was provided when it comes to Grand Slam track. 400-meter win in 43.98 seconds, a world lead, the first time in 2025 someone broke the 44-second barrier, and the first time that Ja'Cory Patterson broke the 44-second barrier. He just improved his personal best a couple weeks ago with 44.2, dropping it all the way down from 44.8, from a couple of years ago, but now he really showed up. And with his sixth place in the 200, that 20.55, that gave him the second place overall behind Dream Richards. That gave him $50,000. And he, of course, told his story about being a UPS worker and, having to wake up extremely early, being able to navigate, practice, being able to, having to pack boxes. It's like that story is absolutely crazy. And that's what I love about Grand Slam track. This was one of the highlights where, yes, an unsponsored athlete who's a professional in the world of track and field, as we call it, right? Professional. They were able to come here, have a really big payday. And yes, in theory, it could be life-changing for someone like Ja'Cory Patterson, but it at least allows him to be a little more comfortable. It's unfortunate that this is the world of track and field that we live in, where professional athletes are forced to work at different jobs and just trying to make track and field work. Like this is crazy. So shout out to Ja'Cory Patterson for him coming out. He deserves to be a challenger once again, and he might mess around, become a racer next year. So Ja'Cory, that's that guy. In Alex Ogando coming in third place overall with his, again, 19.86 to get second in the 200, and then fifth place in the 400. 44.7 was really strong. Did really like that performance from him. Muzawa Samukonga, he had a strong showing in that 200, personal best 20.23, and then also 44.5, getting overall fourth place. Matthew Hudson-Smith, shout out to you, my guy. Like, you really showed up and showed out. Like, I know you were dealing with so much at this meet, like over the past couple weeks, and you showed up. So Matthew Hudson-Smith, man, Matthew is going to be dangerous. Matthew is going to be dangerous this year. Let this man. Shout out to Matthew Hudson Smith. The other one I did want to note is Steven Gardner. It's unfortunate. He did finish 7th overall because they do allow you to get points because he finished in the 200. He got that 4th. But this is one where it's so tricky. Similar again. I made predictions. I said he would finish 5th. Everyone was saying I was crazy, but I'm not saying again I didn't predict this, but he was a DNF in the 400. It's so tragic because I'm just so happy that Steven Gardner was able to at least see some success early on in his career. You know, the silver medal in 2017, he got the gold medal in 2019 and the gold medal in 2021. But since then, he's literally dealt with injuries year after year after year. 2022, 2023, 2024, and now in 2025, he once again is a DNF in the 400. This is really tough because we're looking at literally one of the greatest 400 meter athletes in the history of the event, and we're seeing so many back-to-back injuries. He said he told me that he had a head cold on Friday, you know, after the 200, but I did not think that this 400 was going to go this way. It's really tough because Steven Gardner is so humble. He's so respectful, you know, very quiet as well in general, but he's someone who definitely deserves more. But like I said, I'm glad that at least he got a ton of medals. If he, you know, I would love to see him get medals in the future, but if he doesn't, if that never happens because of injuries and setbacks, I'm glad that we can at least respect what he was able to do. And let's be clear, he's still very young. Like, he still has years to go. I'm not trying to like dismiss Steven Gardner in any capacity, but it's just tough watching him, you know, unfortunately not be able to, remain as healthy as we'd want him to. So shout out to Steven Gardner and everything that he's able to do. Hopefully he's able to get healthy here. Let me just roll through a couple others as well. So we did have the women's short hurdles where Akira Nugent, of course, got the overall win, winning the 100 in 11.09, 100 meter personal best, tying her personal best from a couple years back. That was kind of her first love in the 100. I got a chance to speak with her and she was just elated. And she said that performances like this and getting overall wins, it kind of gives her a lot of some more enjoyment, you know, with the sport. She's spoken last time at Kingston, I spoke with her about how she's not really enjoying this sport and the transition from NCAA to professional as much, but something like this does give her, you know, some enjoyment here. But Masai Russell getting second place overall after the American record in the 100 meter hurdles, and then she got fourth place with 11.40 in the 100. But I think Akira Nugent, this was her group, right? She was the most dominant force here across the board, getting third in the 100 hurdles and then first in the 100. Like, the 100 wasn't even close. She ran 11.09. Megan Tapper ran 11.33 for second. Like, this was not even close. It'll be interesting as we go over to Philly Grand Slam, where Sadie McLaughlin-Levrone is going to be dropping into this group. And shout out to Chris Chavez. He was asking on the podcast, where is Sydney maybe the favorite going into this group in the 100 meters? In the 100 meters, is she the favorite? Because we know what she's capable of, you know, in the 4 hurdles and the 400, but don't forget what she did in the 200. She ran 22.0 last year in the 200. Is she maybe the favorite in the 100? And then if she's doing, you know, she said that she's going to be practicing things between now and Philly, you know, to get ready for that 100 and 100 hurdles. But if that happens, if she like wins the 100, then if she finishes high enough in the 100 hurdles, could she win that as well? It's going to be tough, but just an interesting conversation to think about. But that was the women's short hurdles. Men's short hurdles, Trey Cunningham swept that 100-meter hurdle, 110-meter hurdles, 100 meters, 13 flat in the 110 hurdles. And then in the 100, he ran 10.17 seconds. I mean, he was so confident. He exuded confidence across the board. And like, even after the hurdles, he was like, nah, I got the 100. Like, I'm good with that. And he showed that. He showed up and showed out. But shout out to Sasha Zoya. He also came second place overall, so dropping that back from his Kingston Slam win. But Jamal Britt was one who, like I kind of mentioned it in my preview, he was a sleeper in a sense. He had run 10.20 seconds, I think, this year already, and he matched that here. He is, on paper, the second fastest 100-meter sprinter in the field, right? Trey Cunningham and then Jamal Britt. So Jamal Britt, he got fourth place in the 110s, and that really did give him a little leg up as it went to getting third place overall. Shout out to all these guys, but Trey Cunningham, he is dangerous. We're going to see him at the Atlanta City Games. He was talking about how he wasn't able to get into one of the 100 fields, but, you know, maybe we'll see him in another 100 in the future down the line or something like that. But A couple others to just close out on with the men's and the women's long hurdles. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone dominated as always, 52.02 in the 400 meter hurdles, and then 49.69 in the 400. She said after the race that she, hit her targets for the most part in terms of what she wanted to execute on, but she was the most dominant here. Like I said, she's going to be moving down to the 100 hurdles and the 100, the short sprint hurdles group in Philly, and then she'll be moving over to the long sprints group in LA. So maybe, again, let me know. Do you think that Sydney is maybe the slight favorite in the 100 meter sprint for the short hurdles group in Philly next time? 100 hurdles, she's not the favorite, by far. She's not, right? Tia Jones, Masai Russell, Akira Nugent, I'm not picking her to beat any of those. And Tia Jones is a challenger, so we'll see if she gets invited back. But I'm not picking her to Sydney to beat any of them. But in the 100, I don't know. That's a very big toss-up. So we'll see how that plays out. Anjanette Knight. Anjanette Knight showed up for second place overall here just by an edge, because Anna Hall and Anjanette Knight, they went on the tiebreaker. Anjanette Knight got the tie over there. Anjanette Knight is someone who I feel kind of goes under the radar, but has had some consistent seasons in 2023, 2024, and specifically in the 400 meter hurdles. And I think, especially as Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone kind of steps out, Anjanette Knight is only a challenger, but she could start to, I'm hoping maybe she'll get the invitation back to Philly and Los Angeles. She could be someone who also shines here. Well, shout out to Anna Hall. Let me be clear, right? I definitely underrepresented Anna Hall in terms of her potential and her ability. She had not been running the event in the 400 hurdles and even the 400 in some time, so I wasn't sure of what she would be capable of here, but she showed up, got second place in the 400 as well as third place in the 4 hurdles. Amazing performances. It gave me some flashbacks to someone like Ashton Egan in 2010 when he, was a multi-eventer, but he dipped into the 400 hurdles that year. Could Anna Hall do that at some point, right? Maybe in 2026, right? In the off year, who knows? But Anna Hall for the third place. Cheyenne Salmon, also representing Jamaica, got the fourth place overall. And then Shamir Little coming back from injury. I think she said she had a toe fracture or foot fracture that she had been dealing with. So she had to pull out of Kingston, but she showed up here and got fifth place overall. So shout out to all the women there. Ending off with the men's long hurdles. This was a very, very interesting battle between Alison Dos Santos and Chris Robinson. Though Dos Santos got the overall win in both the 4 hurdles and the 400, I think that Chris Robinson really kind of put some pressure on Dos Santos, at least potentially mentally, whereas Dos Santos knew he had to push in that 400 to make sure that he was clear from Chris Robinson. Chris Robinson, he got second place in the 400 running 44.86. Alison Dos Santos ran a personal best of 44.53. But even outside of the times, I think this proves that Dos Santos is someone who should not be slept on when it comes to the open 400. We know that what he can do in the 4 hurdles. We've seen him run 46.2. We've seen him run 46 a bunch of times. We've seen him get a gold medal at the World Championships, double bronze at the Olympic Games. But when it comes to the 400, I feel like when it comes to the open 4 for some 400 meter hurdlers, I feel like Dos Santos doesn't get recognized in the conversation with someone like Arai Benjamin, who has been running the 4x4s for the United States, so he's able to showcase his ability on that 400 or on an open 4. But Alison Dos Santos doesn't get that chance, right? He's not competing for Brazil on the 4x4. I think this really shows that he is more than capable of being an open 400 meter runner. Now, he's not running, sub 44 seconds or anything like that, but if you're beating out Chris Robinson, who was a world leader in the 400, that proves that, I actually do have some strong chops. So shout out to Alison Dos Santos. Chris Robinson, shout out to you with second place. He was a challenger. I really want him to get an invitation back. He's someone else who's also unsponsored. He said that winning this money, this 50K, also with the money that he won at the last slam, that goes a long way for an athlete like him. So we'll see if he does get an invitation back, and we know that he's going to be a threat there. Caleb Dean, he didn't perform to the best of his ability. He hit a hurdle in the 400 hurdles on Friday, but in the 400 he did come up for third place, personal best of 45.18. So he hasn't run the 400 much. I think in Kingston was his first 400 for a long time. So for him to get third place overall, hopefully he's starting to find his footing and get a little bit more comfortable with the rhythm, especially as it comes to those hurdles. We don't want to see Caleb Dean hitting those hurdles because we know his potential in the event. So shout out to them. And last one, shout out to Malik James King. I spoke with his agent earlier on Sunday, and his agent was telling me how he found him and his coach and him. Malik James King was going to retire after the 2023 World Championships, but his agent and his coach were like, yo, you have so much potential. Don't let this go. You can really be someone. And now he's here. He was competed at the Olympic Games. He had an amazing 2024. And now he's in Grand Slam track. Yes, competing as a challenger, but now he's done Kingston. Now he's done Miami. He finished 4th place here. He's making some money. Listen, shout out to Malik James King, represented Jamaica to the fullest. But overall, that was Grand Slam track Miami. Again, I have a couple more videos coming out throughout the week from, highlighting some individual stories, Kenny B, Melissa Jefferson, Oblique Seville, and a few others as well. So definitely stay tuned to that. But let me know what you thought about Miami. Again, I was on the ground, and overall, I actually felt like this was a step up from Kingston. Now, Kingston, as its individual, as an individual slam, I thought it was an amazing experience, right? These are different cities. So I'm not saying that Miami was necessarily better. It was different, but there were things that were improved upon, from Kingston. And some of these things manifest itself in different ways, like the venue and the stadium, but then also the fans and the location where, a lot of these athletes had family and friends coming to Miami because they're local. Like, think of all the sprinters who train in Florida. It's easy to get family, friends, and everybody here cheering for you versus, traveling out to Jamaica is a little bit more challenging. So that kind of does change the experience a little bit, of course, for the athletes, but then also for the fans and myself in media kind of covering the meet. But let me know what you think. For my initial reaction to everything, you can check myself, Chris Chavez, Aisha Peralt-Lear, Eric Jenkins. We were doing recap shows after every single day on Citius Mag, so you can always check those out on Citius Mag. As well, you can check out all the interviews that we were able to get. That's where I was able to speak with all the athletes, get some insight about their stories and different things. So definitely check that out. And the last video that I'll probably also have coming out is from the conversation with Michael Johnson, and it's a little bit of his vision for the league as he kind of does move forward after Kingston and Miami. So stay tuned for all of those as we look forward for the rest of the week. And then we got World Relays coming up next week. So let me know what you think. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Always appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.